Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's session, we would be studying nitrogen cycle. Sorry for some delayed and some late updates and uploads on this channel, but we will be trying to be consistent on this channel from now. Since I had my notes already ready and I have taught this topic to a student before, so that's why I thought that these notes are very perfect in order for you to understand what nitrogen cycle exactly is. Yeah, today we are going to study nitrogen cycle. Before starting nitrogen cycle, I would like to just revise some points about nitrogen. Nitrogen is most abundant element. Secondly, it is present everywhere basically, in plants, in animals, in human beings as well. Nitrogen is a very important and essential building block. So it's present in amino acids. It's a very essential atom or essential molecule of amino acids. Basically, this nitrogen is present in your muscles, in your bones, everywhere. But let's talk about specifically where. So muscles are made out of what? Muscles are made out of proteins. Of course, muscles are made out of cells. Then cells are made out of cell membrane, right? Cell membrane is indeed, it has proteins in it. So talking about proteins, what exactly are proteins? So proteins are group of very long amino acids. Now, if we take these amino acids like this, a lot of amino acids together make a lot of amino acids together make proteins, and proteins make muscles and other cells of our body. Also, the same goes with plants. Cells of plants are made out of proteins. So this is why studying nitrogen as a gas or as a compound in our nature is very essential, and nitrogen is essential for our development. So that's why understanding how the nitrogen flows is very important. Back in the time, let's go a little behind. Back in the time, we human beings started discovering a lot of things, and nitrogen was one of them. And then we observed that nitrogen follows a specific chain. Okay. From gaseous nitrogen to compounds, and from compounds it comes on into our bodies. And when we die, or when we excrete, this nitrogen goes out in atmosphere and again converts into gaseous form. So this sort of forms a few pathways or a few chains of events that occur with nitrogen. They can be in different forms, but basic core idea of this was very same, very similar. So these common observations led to a cycle which we popularly call today as nitrogen cycle. Again, this is a continuous process. At the same time, it doesn't have to follow the same exact chain route. It can have multiple exits and entry points of nitrogen all around. But we would be studying the basic and the most important aspect of this nitrogen cycle in today's session, and we would be highlighting some important points. So that's why I have these colorful notes for you guys. So let's take a look at this entire nitrogen cycle. I would like to give you the entire look. So this is how it is. It has like two basic chains. You can see this one. Let's change the color. Okay, you can see this one, and there is another chain, that is the second one. So how let's just focus on how gaseous nitrogen is converted into compounds, nitrogen compounds. And then how is this again getting into our bodies, and how is this getting from our bodies to compounds, and then from two compounds to from compounds of nitrogen to gaseous nitrogen. So this is the entire process that we would be following. First, let's start with the nitrogen in the air, that is the gaseous form. So gaseous form. So the gaseous form of how does the gaseous form of nitrogen get converted uh, into compounds, or let's say solid form, not exactly solid form, but into the compounds. So there is something called as fixation. So nitrogen gets fixated. So that is why we call this process as fixation, nitrogen fixation. And this is happening with the help of some bacteria that are called as nitrogen fixation bacteria. So nitrogen fixation bacteria are some bacteria that help in fixating nitrogen into our fixating gaseous nitrogen into its compounds. So these compounds can be nitrates, also some gases, but we would be specifically talking about nitrates. So there is also another thing that helps in fixating, that is lightning. Now, what does lightning do? Lightning provides a large amount of okay, so before studying what lightning exactly does, let's just understand what exactly, how does nitrogen exactly behave. Nitrogen is very inert. It doesn't burn easily, it is not flammable, it is not combustible at a lower temperature. Secondly, nitrogen, as in nature, has three bonds, so it definitely requires higher energy to make it react. So this high amount of energy, or like uh, higher amount of energy, is provided by lightning, because lightning has a lot of energy in it. So that's why this lightning is very essential. What does lightning exactly do? Lightning provides high amount of energy, which helps in breaking those nitrogen, those triple bonds, and then this makes into a separate nitrogens, and these nitrogens again react, and then they form nitrates. So this is what we need to learn about nitrogen fixation. Now, coming from okay, so there are some nitrogen fixing bacteria as well. So let's learn one example of nitrogen fixation bacteria, that are rhizobium. Rhizobium bacteria are the same bacteria that produce a specific type of smell when it rains, and this is a rhizobium bacteria that converts a gaseous nitrogen into nitrates. Now we would be studying about how this nitrate gets into your body. No, that's quite obvious. How would nitrogen get into our bodies? So you must have seen that plants grow from soil, right? So let's draw a plant. So we have a plant drawn already. We would be drawing the plant again. Okay. So guys, let me just draw a plant. So this is soil. Do you see soil? Yeah. And let's draw these nitrates in yellow color. So there are some nitrates that have been recently converted, fixated by bacterias, and let's draw a plant. Do not judge my plant, but I would try to draw it better. Okay, so it has two leaves now. Uh, so what happens is that roots, so nitrates are usually absorbed through roots, and they help in making proteins, and that is how nitrates are taken up by a living organism, and then these are converted into proteins. So this process of take up of nitrogen, okay, uptake of nitrogen, uptake, we would call this uptake. This uptake of nitrogen, or absorption of nitrogen from soil into the plant, is called as assimilation. Just like how we assimilate fat molecules inside our small intestine, and then it is taken up by the lacteals and from the villi. In the similar manner, here take up roots just suck up the nitrates from the soil, and they take them inside them, and then they convert it into protein. Now what exactly happens is that, now you see these two leaves are now four leaves over here. Let's come over here. So what does this show? This shows that the plant grows up, so it directly uh, needs proteins to grow. So this growth, you see just two leaves over here, so you can tell that there is growth just on the basis of number of leaves. So that's why I have made this a schematic diagram, so that you guys can understand this, that the plant has grown up now. Let's draw some roots. Okay. It has grown up because it has developed proteins, and these proteins are developed because of what? Now you guys might be wondering, where does plant gets its own nutrition? So coming to the plant, plant takes up carbohydrates. Sorry, plant makes its own carbohydrates by photosynthesis, and it takes up water. It also takes nitrates from soil. It also takes its proteins from soil, if we think, uh, and it creates its own food, and based on use of proteins and glucose, it makes its fruits, and it makes leaves and its branches. So this process of uptake of nitrates from soil and development of plant or just uptake is called as assimilation. So now these nitrates or these nitrogen molecules, nitrogen compounds are inside plant. Now what happens next? There are two chances. First of all, plant completes its life cycle and then it dies. And the second thing is that a sheep or a goat or a cow or a buffalo or a horse comes and eats it. So an animal eats the plant. So this is the second scenario. What can happen? So this is again what? What exactly is this? So animals eat the. Or let's take an example of human. Humans eat leaves, and then it goes into their digestive system, and then again this complex molecule that the plants have made is now again broken down into smaller pieces, and then it is assimilated by our digestive system as well. So you can see this. So there are like two pathways that follow plants. First is this one and the second is this one. You can see those clearly. Let's talk about the first pathway in which a plant dies. So this is a plant. You can see the plant. It dies. It gets into the soil. It gets covered by soil. Then there is development of bacteria again. So what do these bacteria do? Bacteria break down these plants into smaller pieces. You must have studied about them. These are called as humus. Those decomposed particles of living matter are called as humus. So exactly, humus is being created. What exactly is humus? Humus is broken down particles. If we see, it is decomposing, exactly, yeah, it is decaying, yeah, exactly. But what exactly is happening on the molecular level is that these complex nitrogen molecules, these complex nitrogen compounds are being broken down into simpler ones, like nitrates, for example, nitrates. So these are being broken down into nitrates back again. So this is the first pathway that plants would be following. That is their natural death. The second one is plants are being consumed by human beings or by animals. So I've drawn a small cute sheep over here to show that plants are being eaten. Now what happens when the plant is being eaten? When the plant is being eaten, these nitrogen compounds transfer from plants into animals. You can see clearly these yellow nitrogen compounds are being transported into this sheep. So now what happens with the sheep? So now finally, nitrates or these nitrogen compounds are inside animals. Now there are two possibilities, possibly more, but let's talk about two. The first one is that the animal would poop, and the second one is the animal would die. The third one is animal can pee as well. But talking about poop and pee, this is defecation or excretion. Nitrogen compounds also exit human body or animal body or any living organism through excretion as well. So heavy amounts of ammonia and heavy amounts of urea also and ammonia, these are taken out from the body, and then these are again transported to the so you can clearly see that. So poop and pee, let's talk about those excretion part. So when animals excrete, again these nitrogen compounds are released into the atmosphere, and then these are back carried back to nitrates and nitrites. Second thing that can happen is animals die, and then again they are being decomposed. You can clearly see here there are nitrifying bacteria that convert those complex nitrogen compounds. These are again converted from animals into simpler nitrogen compounds like nitrates. And now there is something called as denitrification bacteria that convert these nitrates or simpler nitrogen compounds into gaseous nitrogen back again. So a common example of such bacteria is Pseudomonas. So this is how the entire cycle goes. It starts from gaseous nitrogen being converted into nitrates, and simpler nitrogen forms. It is consumed by animals, and that's how they get into animals and also plants. And then these plants and animals go through decay and excretion, and this is how they get back again into simpler nitrogen forms. And from the simpler nitrogen forms, they are denitrified using denitrification bacteria into gaseous nitrogen. So this was the entire nitrogen cycle that I wanted to discuss. Common examples of nitrogen fixing bacteria is rhizobium, which gives out this specific smell. And common example of denitrifying bacteria is Pseudomonas. So this was all about nitrogen cycle that I wanted you guys to learn. Thank you so much for watching video. See you in the next one. Bye bye.